You notice a crack in your drywall, maybe your doors won't close right. So you call a foundation repair company, the one with the big billboard on the highway, the 5-star Google reviews, the guy who shows up in a pressed polo shirt with a tablet full of scary-looking diagrams. 2 hours later, he is quoting you $28,000 for 12 helical piers. You sign the contract, they install the piers, and 6 months later, your floors are still sloping, your doors are still sticking. And that company? They are telling you it is within acceptable tolerances. You just got played. My name is Engr, Vance. I am a licensed forensic structural engineer with over 2 decades of diagnosing structural failures across this country, from the expansive clay soils of Houston, Texas, to the limestone karst terrain of Central Florida. And today, I am pulling back the curtain on one of the most financially destructive scams operating in the U.S. real estate market right now. Unnecessary and improperly engineered foundation pier installations. Stay with me for the next 8 minutes. It could save you tens of thousands of dollars. The foundation repair industry generates over $4.5 billion every single year in this country, and it is almost entirely unregulated at the point of sale. Here is what that means in plain language. The salesperson who walks into your home and recommends a $30,000 repair solution is, in most states, not a licensed engineer. They are a commissioned salesperson. Their paycheck depends on the size of your contract. The bigger the job they sell you, the bigger the cut they take home. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a business model. According to the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors, the #1 conflict of interest in the residential repair market is contractor-diagnosed structural problems. That means the same company telling you that you have a problem is also the one selling you the solution. And here is where it gets technically dangerous. Not every foundation crack, not every sloping floor, and not every sticking door requires piers. In fact, the majority of residential foundation complaints across the United States are caused by one of 3 things: soil shrinkage and seasonal movement, especially in clay-heavy states like Texas, Oklahoma, and Georgia. Poor surface drainage that is directing water directly toward your foundation, or settling that has already stabilized, meaning it is purely cosmetic, not structural. Installing helical or push piers on a foundation that does not need them does not just waste your money. It can actually introduce new stress points into your slab or stem wall. I have seen it with my own eyes, and I am going to prove it to you right now. Let us get into the engineering, because this is where I separate myself from every other voice talking about foundations. Your home sits on soil, and soil is not static. It is a living, dynamic material that expands when it absorbs moisture and contracts when it dries out. This behavior is called volumetric change, and it is the root cause of most residential foundation movement in the United States. In states with high plasticity clay, what geotechnical engineers classify as CH or CHMH soils, on the Unified Soil Classification System, the plasticity index can exceed 40 or even 50 points. What that means in real terms is that your soil can swell up to 10% in volume during wet seasons and then shrink dramatically during drought conditions. Now, the building code, specifically IBC Section 1803 and the referenced ASCE 7-22 standard, requires a geotechnical investigation for most commercial construction. But for residential construction under IRC jurisdiction, most local authorities allow builders to proceed with no soil testing whatsoever. That is a code gap, and foundation repair companies exploit it every single day. Here is what they do not tell you. If your slab has moved because of soil shrinkage, installing a pier system does not fix the soil. It anchors one section of your foundation to a deeper load-bearing stratum, typically bedrock or dense gravel, while the rest of your slab continues to move freely around it. The result is something called a differential settlement condition. One section of your slab is now locked in place, while adjacent sections keep shifting. This creates new cracks in locations that were previously fine. It causes pipe shear in your plumbing system beneath the slab. It warps door frames that were never a problem before. This is not a theoretical risk. This is forensic reality, and I have documented it in case after case across this country. Let me walk you through one specific investigation. A homeowner in the Katy, Texas area, sitting directly on Beaumont Clay Formation soils just west of Houston, called me in after spending $22,400 on 10 push piers installed by a regional foundation repair company. The salesperson had shown up with photos of diagonal drywall cracks at window corners, a floor slope measured at 1.5 inches over 20 feet, and some separation at the brick veneer. Classic signs of foundation distress on the surface. Classic sales material underneath. Here is what my forensic investigation actually found. Finding number 1. The floor slope was 1.5 inches over 20 feet. That is a ratio of 1 in 160. The generally accepted engineering threshold for structural concern in residential construction is 1 in 100, roughly 1 inch per 8 feet of run. This floor was well within cosmetic tolerance. It did not meet any threshold requiring mechanical intervention. Finding number 2. The root cause was a soil moisture differential across the slab. The front elevation of the home faced the street with zero landscaping and full sun exposure all day long. The rear of the home had dense shrubs planted directly against the foundation, keeping that soil saturated through every season. The front soil was desiccated and contracted. The rear was saturated and expanded. This is a classic edge lift and edge drop pattern driven entirely by a moisture management failure, not a structural failure. Finding number 3. After the piers were installed along the perimeter, 3 of them were driven into a shallow caliche layer, a calcium carbonate hardpan that is common in East Texas soils, that the crew mistook for bedrock refusal. These piers were effectively floating in a layer that itself moves seasonally. They anchored nothing of consequence. The correct engineering solution for that home was a root barrier along the rear foundation line at $800, revised guttering, and a French drain installation to redirect surface water away from the foundation at $2,200, and a foundation irrigation system to regulate soil moisture uniformly around the perimeter at $600. Total correct repair cost, $3,600. The homeowner paid $22,400 for piers that were the wrong solution to the wrong diagnosis. That is an $18,000 mistake, and it is happening every single day in neighborhoods across this country. So how do you protect yourself before you ever sign a contract? Let me give you the field-tested red flags that every homeowner needs to know. The first red flag is no independent engineering report. If the company diagnosing your problem is also selling you the solution, you stop the conversation and you demand an independent structural engineering evaluation. Expect to pay between $400 and $1,200 for a licensed PE inspection. That fee will save you $20,000. The second red flag is no soil report referenced anywhere in their proposal. Any legitimate pier installation requires documented knowledge of your soil's load-bearing capacity, plasticity index, and actual depth to refusal. If they never mention soil type, you walk away immediately. The third red flag is a pier quote with no hydraulic lift plan attached. Helical and push piers must be accompanied by a documented lift plan that shows target elevation recovery for each pier location. If they cannot show you that plan, the job is not engineered. It is guesswork sold at engineering prices. The fourth red flag is lifetime warranty language in the contract. Read every exclusion clause carefully, because most of those warranties void themselves the moment you cannot prove annual maintenance. A warranty on piers means absolutely nothing if the soil condition driving the movement is never corrected at its source. The fifth red flag is uniform pier spacing with no load calculation attached. Pier placement must be based on tributary load areas, meaning the weight each individual pier is expected to carry based on your home's framing, roof load, and occupancy. Cookie-cutter spacing at 6-foot intervals with no load calculation is not engineering. It is production line work billed at custom rates. And the sixth red flag, one of the most important, is any high-pressure, same-day close. Legitimate structural issues do not expire overnight. If a salesperson tells you that they have a crew available this week only, or offers you a steep discount for signing today, that is a sales manipulation tactic, not engineering urgency. Now, before you ever consider piers, a competent independent engineer should walk you through what I call the repair hierarchy. You always start at the lowest level of intervention and work upward only when the data demands it. The first level is moisture management, and it costs between $500 and $4,000. You correct the drainage, install proper gutters, extend your downspouts a minimum of 6 feet from the foundation, install root barriers where vegetation is encroaching, and implement a foundation irrigation system if you are in a clay soil environment. This single level of intervention resolves the majority of residential foundation movement cases I evaluate. The second level is mudjacking or polyurethane foam lifting, ranging from $1,000 to $5,000. For slabs that have settled due to void formation or erosion beneath the concrete, slab lifting via high-density polyurethane injection is minimally invasive, requires no excavation, and restores grade effectively without anchoring your foundation to anything. The third level is interior drainage and waterproofing, between $3,000 and $10,000. For basement and crawlspace foundations experiencing hydrostatic pressure, interior drainage systems with sump pump installation address the actual water source before it compromises your structural system. The fourth level, and only the fourth level, is engineered pier systems, $12,000 to $40,000 or more. This is the last resort, not the first call. It is appropriate only when geotechnical data confirms inadequate soil-bearing capacity, when differential settlement exceeds structural tolerance thresholds, and when the failure mechanism cannot be corrected through moisture or drainage management. It requires a sealed engineering report, a permitted scope of work, and a third-party inspection at completion. Here is the bottom line. Foundation repair is a legitimate and necessary industry, but it has been infiltrated by commissioned salespeople operating as diagnosticians, and they are counting on you being scared, uninformed, and willing to write a large check to make the fear disappear. Do not let that be you. Before any foundation contractor touches your home, hire an independent licensed structural or geotechnical engineer. Get the soil evaluated, understand your load paths, and demand that every single recommendation be backed by engineering data, not a sales presentation. An independent engineering report costs between $400 and $1,200. It can save you $20,000 or more. That is not a suggestion. That is the most important structural investment you will make. I am Engr Vance. Protect your structure. Protect your investment.